Okay, hello folks. My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. How you guys doing? So welcome. Today is February 13th, 2021. And let's jump right into it. So first off, please excuse any background noise that you may hear. I really should invest in one of those noise canceling microphones. Just right when I start to stream, the guy next door decides to listen to like really fast-paced hardcore punk rock literally 2 minutes ago. I hope that's not being picked up by the microphone too much, but that's okay. Not that it's bad music or anything. It's like, dude, couldn't you just like wait like a couple hours anyway? But that's fine, you know. So let's take a look at what we're working on. We're almost finished, you know, almost, with what we got here. We just have this little section down at the bottom. I don't know how well you can see that, so I'm just going to be focusing on that today. And then, I don't know, I guess we'll have to start something else. Yeah, this one is, you know, we've been working on this for like the last like 6 streams. And, you know, this piece of paper is about, oh, I don't know, 15 by 20 maybe, something like that, you know, so it's pretty big. And then I guess maybe I'll just make prints of this or something, and you know, if you guys want it, I'll just give it to you, you know. I'll put it on my SD shop, but what I'll do is I'll give you guys a coupon code so you can just get it for free if you want it. Anyway, so let's jump right into it today. First thing I need to do is change my chair here because the chair is too squeaky. And it's going to be making all this noise throughout the whole day. So that's alright. I have another chair here. Even though this chair is far less comfortable, but you know, the sacrifices we make. So, the title of my stream here is Republicans Were Always Violent. Now, why do I say that exactly? Right. Well, so we've gotten, you know, the capital city riot, which happened last month, right? And there's been kind of a, I guess, a blowback from that, in the mainstream at least, right? You've seen like, you know, the mainstream media kind of sensationalize it a little bit, you know, but I mean, it's a history-making, you know, event, right? But you've also seen blowback from, you know, in social media, you know, the biggest effect of that being Trump being banned from Twitter, obviously, but he wasn't the only one. Twitter turned around, Facebook, you know, they pretty much shut down thousands of people, you know, lots of bots, lots of people that were reported for hate speech, especially things like QAnon pages, you know, got shut down from Twitter and Facebook and other social media too. The other big thing was Parler, you know, got basically shut down as a company, you know. Parler's essentially gone. Who knows if they'll ever come back? I mean, they're technically still up, but they don't have a domain. Right. And I think if they haven't shut down the company completely already, they're on their way out. That kind of thing. You know, it's like there's definitely been a pretty huge backlash since the capital city riots. And this has you know, that's accumulating now in the second impeachment of Donald Trump, which has been going on this week. So the first half of our stream here, I want to talk a little bit about that. And then the second half, we'll talk a little bit more about the historical, you know, the recent history of Republican violence, right? Now, when I say Republicans, I actually mean the Republican Party, because not all conservatives are Republican, but most conservatives vote Republican. So let's put it that way, although all of them don't, obviously. I mean, there's always some holdouts. There's people like libertarians and stuff like that. But, you know, chances are if you're a conservative in this country, you vote for the Republican Party. Okay, that's just, you know, we live in essentially a two-party system, right? And it's misleading and disingenuous to claim otherwise. You know, that's just kind of how reality is, right? So Donald Trump, thought that we would be over with him, didn't you? You know, once he left office, I was kind of looking forward to never really having to talk about this guy at all very much in the future, unless it was some weird little story here or there, you know, because he's a public figure. He's always going to do embarrassing things. There's a story that came out last week, for example, where he wrote this, like, really sort of butthurt Karen-esque kind of letter to the Screen Actors Guild and resigned and all that shit, blah, 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 right? And I thought that's what would happen, but, you know, as in an official capacity having to do with the government and politics, I thought Trump was over. Not so much, because Donald Trump is being, you know, impeached. The impeachment trial of Donald Trump is happening right now. In fact, he already was impeached, and they just, you know, this is the Senate trial to actually convict, right? I've kind of avoided doing a video on this coming up, you know, recently, because these things move so fast. You know, you do a video on Monday, a bunch of stuff happens, and then by Friday it's completely irrelevant, you know. So that's why I've sort of avoided it. Right now, as of today, I think the Senate actually is in session today. I could be wrong. Today's Saturday. I don't think they're going to wait until Monday. They're presenting Donald Trump's defense. So the prosecution is already wrapped. You know, if you've been watching it, it was pretty compelling. You know, they kind of got up. They played a couple of videos of, you know, security footage, things like that. Trump supporters outside, you know, chanting "Hang Mike Pence," that kind of thing, breaking into the Capitol. Some things that we didn't know, for example, how, you know, there's that video of the police officer who was leading the mob away from, you know, the mob away up these stairs. You know, if you've seen that video. Apparently there was more security footage of that, you know, for example, of him essentially saving Mitt Romney's life. You know, they're telling Mitt Romney to go this way, and then, like, you know, a couple of minutes later, the fucking mob breaks through there. And it's like, I mean, if you just think about, like, you know, Mitt Romney was the only Republican in Trump's previous impeachment trial. You know, the one for the, you know, blackmailing the Ukraine, if you remember that, in order to get goods on, you know, Hunter Biden, right? Which he was impeached for the first time. Mitt Romney was the only Republican to actually vote to impeach, right? So, yeah, you can imagine that the, you know, Trump's mob, what they would do if they were to get their hands on him, right? So basically the security guard just saves Mitt Romney's life, right? Shit like that. And it was pretty powerful, you know. The Senate has, as of, I think, yesterday, just voted to allow witnesses, right? Which is kind of amazing, because in the last one, they didn't have any witnesses, right? And you kind of think, like, well, how the fuck are you going to have a trial without witnesses? Right? That kind of surprised me. It surprised me that they allowed witnesses this time. You know, because I thought they, you know, because they didn't want to at first. And they didn't in the previous trial. And it seemed like when this one, this particular impeachment trial was happening, that they wanted to just get it over with as soon as possible. That's what it seemed like to me. And I think what happened is that the reason that they allowed witnesses this time, right, is that a story just broke about Kevin McCarthy. Just yesterday, this story breaks, and it was about a phone call that happened on January 6th, where McCarthy is, there, and we're getting reports of House representatives essentially running for their lives, right? And so McCarthy calls Trump, and he's like, hey, they're breaking into my office. Like McCarthy is there. He's like, they're breaking into my office. They're going to fucking kill us. You got to do something, right? And Donald Trump says back to McCarthy, Kevin McCarthy, right? This is the quote. He goes, well, Kevin, I guess these people are more upset about the election than you are. This is what Donald Trump says to Kevin McCarthy. So Kevin McCarthy is calling Donald Trump, begging him to get him to do something about this. Because, if you remember, Donald Trump actually, this is what the whole impeachment is all about. Did Donald Trump incite these people to go riot, on purpose, right? Unfortunately, there's, they have to prove motive here, which we'll get to that in a little bit, right? But, what was Trump's motive? And did he do this on purpose? And you can kind of tell what his motive was by looking how he reacted as the shit was going down, right? Does that really sound like somebody who is appalled of the violence that's happening, who didn't want that violence to happen? The reports are that Donald Trump was enthralled by all this, that he was at home watching, well, not at home, but he was watching this whole thing unfold on TV and was like mesmerized by it. Hey, Dynacat and Lewis a Hedgehog. What's up, guys? How you doing? Wait, they decided not to call witnesses? Really? I thought they did. Hang on a second, because I just read, like a few minutes ago, they decided to call witnesses. Let me see here. Let me just Google that real fast. Impeachment, call witnesses. Impeachment, final vote expected later Saturday after surprise witness fight. Okay, so there hasn't been the vote yet as of 11 minutes ago. I'm reading here on CNN. The final vote's going to happen today. Shit, so they didn't allow witnesses. I thought they did. Wow. I guess I'm wrong there. Surprise witness fight resolved. Control F. Democrats backed away from a call for witnesses to testify. Well, shit. Okay. That's some bad news. Thanks for bringing that up, Lewis. Or Dynacat. Thank you for bringing that up, Dynacat. The Senate voted for witnesses, but then Trump's defense made it clear they would call a shit ton of ridiculous witnesses, so the Democrats decided it wasn't worth it. Well, fuck. Okay. So, I was about to say there that because of, them calling witnesses, right, then there was actually a chance that Trump would actually get convicted. And so much for that. Now that chance is now 0. He's not getting convicted. They should have just done it, in my opinion. Okay, they're going to call ridiculous witnesses. All right, do it. Drag it out. Let the people at home see the who you're going to call. Right? Let them see it. But oh well, I guess the Democrats figured it's not worth it. Well, I guess I got to change my opinion, because I actually thought if they were going to allow witnesses, that this might have actually been a serious attempt to convict Donald Trump. And now I'm going to have to go with my original assessment that it's not a serious attempt, right? I don't think it was even to begin with. I think they did this out of after the Capitol City riot. I think Nancy Pelosi, right, and some of the Democrats in the House for sure want to convict him, right? I don't think the Democrats in the Senate want to go along with this. I think they think it's a waste of time, right? Which is shitty and fucked up, but the reasoning being that they know that they're not going to be able to get the 17 Republicans in order to convict, right? And I think over this trial, it's pretty much been, that's essentially been borne out. You know what I mean? But, yeah, I mean, before we get too far off a track, though, let me just continue on with what I was talking about. So anyway, yeah, so getting back to what happened on the 6th, right, in the call between Kevin McCarthy. Essentially, Kevin McCarthy, after Trump said to him, these people are more upset about the election than, you are, McCarthy turns to Donald Trump and says, who the fuck do you think you're talking to? And essentially that was, that was the story that just broke. And then I think that's what the witness fight was about, because they wanted to call Kevin McCarthy as a witness, right? Which they should have. They should have done that. They should have just went with it, because, the thing about impeachment, this impeachment trial, right? And the same thing with the last one, actually, is it's more about a fight in the media with the people at home watching, right? They should have done it. They should have allowed witnesses, because that would have turned public opinion against Donald Trump, right? So Republicans are not going to vote to convict. We already kind of knew that going in. They're not going to do it because they're sycophants, and it doesn't benefit them politically to do so. Kevin McCarthy himself may have been very pissed off at Donald Trump because Trump's followers put his life in danger, right, on the 6th. A few days later, Kevin McCarthy flew down to, well, actually, right after the riot, McCarthy objected to the counting of, the electoral votes, right, as was the plan all along. And a few days later, he flew down to Mar-a-Lago in order to lick Trump's butthole, right, and make good with Trump, because, something like 80% of Republicans still at that time supported Donald Trump, and that number really hasn't changed that much since, January 6th. It's still hovering around there. It might have gone down by 3 or 4 points, but it's still right around 80, which is fucking ridiculous. Even after all of this bullshit, all of the video that's come out, and, the violence and all of that, and all these stories about corruption and Donald Trump, fucking taking advantage of all this shit and, stealing campaign funds and all of that. And even after all of this stuff, they still support him. He still has 80% support from Republicans, which is ridiculous. And no, none of them in Congress are going to vote to convict with those kinds of numbers, because they know that that'll be used against them and they'll get primaried, right? So, which is kind of a travesty of justice. But you got to remember, impeachment trials are not about justice. They're political trials. You know what I mean? Which they really are ineffectual for that reason. I think if this teaches us any lesson, it teaches us that we can't rely on the government to police itself. Not between the separation of powers. Those powers are not separated enough. Right? There really is no independence there. That was the idea in the beginning, is that there should be 3 co-equal branches of government, right? And if one got out of hand, one of the other ones would step in and police it. And we've just shown that that's not possible. That's not happening. That's not possible because of political parties. In the beginning, there were no political parties. Political parties are not part of the Constitution. In fact, I think it was actually George Washington warned against political parties. He didn't believe in them, and it was specifically for this reason. It was because the members will put party above the country, Pretty sure I remember reading something about that in my 10th grade history class. And it, was it George Washington or was it Thomas Jefferson? Pretty sure it was George Washington. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. And it turns out that, he was right. And that's exactly what's going on here. We have a president who was guilty. Trump is guilty. Got to remember that. Trump was guilty the first time, during the first impeachment, right? Where he made that phone call to the Ukraine in order to essentially blackmail them into helping him win, dig up dirt on his political opponent. That's illegal. That's illegal, right? You know, if you or I did that on Trump's behalf, we would go to prison for that. That's illegal, If you were, say, a governor or a mayor or something like that, and you did that, you go to prison, right? But he's the president. You can't go to prison because, they refuse to indict a sitting president, which that rule needs to be fucking changed also, So, yeah, this second time, he's guilty this time too. And we've seen, just that story that came out with his interaction with Kevin McCarthy just proves Trump's motive, I mean, this is, there's also a story about how Donald Trump didn't want to send the National Guard in while this shit was going on. In fact, there's several news stories about that. I actually have that in, here we go right here. Damn it, wrong monitor. Pence took lead as Trump initially resisted sending National Guard to Capitol. Fuck off. Fucking, okay. No thanks, go away. Alright. So yeah, as all the shit was going down, as Kevin McCarthy was begging Donald Trump to do something about this, because all he would have to do is, here, I'll put this in the chat if you guys want to read it later. I'm sure you've probably heard about this story. This was all over the place when, the shit was going down. Right. But there you go. Yeah, as all this stuff was happening, all it would have took was for Donald Trump just to get on TV and be like, you guys disperse. This is unacceptable. I don't want this. Go home. And it would have been over with. They would have left. And he wouldn't fucking do that. He wouldn't do that. And he wouldn't call the National Guard. Apparently, he was sitting there enthralled watching the TV because it was live. And he didn't want to miss any of it. And so it was Mike Pence was the one that got the National Guard out there. That proves motive to me. Seriously, if that's not motive, then what is? So wait, I mean, am I really supposed to be expected to believe that he just wouldn't get up off his ass because he's watching TV, and that's what it was? He just didn't want to miss it. Am I really supposed to be expected to believe that, or is it really because they were doing it on his behalf? And you got to remember, there's lots of stuff about this that we just don't know about. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know, because there was a lot of planning involved in this, right? If you remember, leading up to the Capital City riot, the strategy on the Trump side was all about delay. Delay the vote, right? They were calling various states, right? He called the governor of Georgia, trying to get more votes, shit like that, right? Which is illegal, and apparently a criminal investigation has been opened in Georgia for that. So, he called the governor of Michigan, right? He had a meeting with the military to discuss his options as far as a military coup. I'm not kidding. That's real shit. This has all happened. This has all happened. So we know Trump's motive. Trump's motive was to steal the fucking election, right? I mean, this is it's not even a secret. He wasn't even trying to really hide it. Okay, so think about that. He's calling around, discussing all these different things with various people about how he can rip off the election, and Giuliani is calling, House reps, getting them to try to delay the vote, until after the 6th. So why would they delay the vote? Maybe because they were planning on this, this little insurrection here. Maybe that was the idea. We were just gonna maybe they weren't planning on having them break in and murder everybody, but I don't know, seems a little too inconvenient, a little too convenient, I guess, not inconvenient, a little too convenient to me that their plan revolved around delays, and then on the day of the vote, shit gets violent, and then Donald Trump doesn't call the National Guard, Mike Pence does, and then when one of the senators is begging him to do it, Trump just fucking like, doesn't lift a fucking finger and does this sort of I told you so shit. It seems a little, little too, yeah, shit fits together a little well there, doesn't it? And here's the thing about this, right? Because we all kind of knew, even after it happened, like right after it happened, the Republicans still, they flew into damage control, right? And for the last month, how long has it been? It's been about 5 weeks since this happened, right? We've just been getting back from them, this effort to sort of belittle what happened, to gaslight us all into thinking that it was no big deal. It was just another riot. It was nothing compared to what BLM has done. That's the first line of attack that we're getting. Over the summer, BLM went and burned down cities, and how many times have you heard that? They've burned down entire cities and they've killed dozens of people. None of that's true. No cities have been burned down, right? Like what, the entire fucking city? They've been most active in Portland, Oregon. Is the entire city of Portland, Oregon just destroyed, burned down, just a post-apocalyptic Hulk, of a city where there's like, gangs of nuclear mutants running around cannibalizing people? No, none of that shit happened. It's been largely confined to a couple of city blocks. And tons of buildings did not get burned down, Dozens of people have not been killed, not by BLM people, right? Dozens of BLM people may have been killed over the entire course of the year, beaten by, to death by cops, run over by people, shot by Proud Boys. We'll come to that in a little bit later, right? But BLM is not going around like, firebombing people, right? Murdering people, shit like that. No. So that's the first line of defense that we're getting from the conservatives. This whataboutism, this sort of like false equivalency, where they're saying, well, this is no different than all the violent BLM and Antifa people and protests that have happened all over the place. Which is bullshit, because, first off, BLM and Antifa did not try to take over the government, okay? You'll notice that there really weren't very many Antifa people there at the Capital City riot. They weren't really there. And maybe if they were there, they actually would have, prevented this from happening. But Antifa is not about protecting the government. Antifa is about protecting people from fascists, right? They're not there to, the government should be able to protect itself. Antifa is not there to act as a military force for the United States. They're there to protect normal, ordinary people from, fascist thugs that go around and beat the shit out of people and stuff like that. For example, after Charlottesville, you see those videos of Charlottesville of white supremacists running around with their tiki torches, right? What you don't see is them going out and viciously beating and assaulting people that night. Random attacks against minorities, stuff like that, putting people in the hospital. Right? That's what happened at Charlottesville the night before, we all have the video the night after. The day after, of when the counter-protesters started fighting back. You know what I mean? Like, things like Antifa are largely a reaction. They're essentially a defensive reaction against what is perceived as encroaching fascism. Most oftentimes I believe they're correct about it. Right? It is encroaching fascism. They're not there to, so that's why you didn't see tons of Antifa people there. I'm sure there were some counter-protesters, right? But they were largely outnumbered, and they were not responsible for the break-in. That's the other defense that we got over the last month from the right wing in this country, is that they blamed it all on Antifa, I did an entire stream about that, so I'm not going to, elaborate on that too much. If you want to see it, I think it was like the second stream after the event. I basically went through, showed a bunch of pictures, and I'm sure you've all seen them, of people online on Twitter, shit like that, trying to blame this entire, trying to blame the Capital City riot on Antifa infiltrators, and it's just ridiculous conspiracy theory horseshit that has no basis in fucking reality, right? So that was some funny shit. You know, another one that we're trying to get is, you know, they're trying to, you know, the other defense we're getting is like, oh, we all need to just heal and move on. You know, we need to put this in the past behind us. You know, we need to forget and forgive, and you know, it's the Democrats' fault for continuing to bring this up and refusing to move on, which is dividing the country. And that's bullshit too. Okay, you know, 5 people died when that happened, right? When you murder somebody, can you just go up before the judge and just be like, you know, we all just need to move on? Yeah, you know, I shot this guy in the face, and I tied him up behind my pickup truck, and I dragged him for 10 miles until his body fell apart, and then I took his testicles and, you know, mixed them in a blender and, you know, put them in my tomato soup. But, you know, we should all just move on. You know, we should just move on, you know. I went and I took a chainsaw and chopped up his entire family, you know, but fuck it, we just move on, you know. This is dividing us. You guys refusing to forgive me and just forget that the horrible fucking thing I just did. This is dividing us. It's dividing the country. It's like, no, that's bullshit. Right? That's bullshit. We should not forget, you know, the way the country heals after a tragedy is by holding the people accountable, you know, the people responsible accountable. You know, you remember 9/11, right? That was, I mean, that led to, you know, 3,000 people. That led to a fucking 2 wars, right? Because we couldn't hold the people responsible accountable, right? Because they all died. Because they suicide bombed themselves, essentially. That led to 2 wars and, you know, a 20-year-long occupation of us trying to hold the people accountable for 9/11, right? Shit's still going on. We still have troops over there. I mean, only a couple of thousand. It's essentially over with, but there's still troops, there's still military bases in Iraq and Afghanistan, shit like that. We still have a military presence there, you know? How come we just never moved on from that? Right? No, it's horseshit. They want us to move on because they're fucking, you know, they know that they're at fault, right? The Republicans want us to move on because they know that this looks bad for their brand. And they know the next election that shows up, you know, if the Democrats have any brains, they're going to be using this in their fucking commercials. You know, hopefully they will. I hope they do. I hope they never fucking move on. I hope that they bring this shit up for 20 years. You know, for every Republican that's in office right now, I hope every election they have to defend these actions. You know, right? Because it's like, okay, yeah, the, you know, the Republicans in office now, yeah, they didn't cause this, right? But what did they do afterwards, right? Oh, they all condemned the violence, blah, 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 right? Josh Hawley, you know, is one of the senators here who's going to vote on this impeachment trial, you know. Here's Josh Hawley giving a fist bump, right, to the Capital City rioters, you know, the crowd of supporters, right? This is on January 6th as he's walking in, you know. This is one of the guys who's going to vote on whether we should, you know, whether Trump should be convicted, right? Ted Cruz is going to vote on whether Trump should be convicted. Ted Cruz offered to defend Donald Trump at the Supreme Court. Okay, if you remember when, you know, Trump was trying to steal the election legitimately, right, and had all of these horseshit, like, you know, you know, court cases that went nowhere. He lost over 60 of them or whatever. And he thought it was going to go to the Supreme Court because that was kind of the plan to begin with, you know, was to get it in front of the Supreme Court so the people that he installed in the Supreme Court would steal the election for him. That was the idea. That was the original plan, you know, to kind of do a Bush v. Gore Part 2, right? And the Supreme Court didn't go for it. You know, surprisingly, the Supreme Court said no, and it never got in front of it. And that really, I think, sort of drove Trump over the edge. and led to this capital city riot. Right? And but back when that was the plan, Ted Cruz said that he would represent Donald Trump in front of the Supreme Court. Ted Cruz was actually part of the team, the Bush v. Gore team, that stole the election for George W. Bush. And make no mistake, that election was stolen. Okay. You'll notice that a crowd of Democrats did not try to invade the Capitol building in 2000 when there actually was a stolen election. Anyway, later on, then we have who else? I got some more notes here. Mitch McConnell, who of course, basically said that he would not be able to serve as an impartial juror. So when the vote in the House went up, or sorry, in the Senate, Mitch McConnell's in the Senate, and he essentially said when they impeached him that he was going to coordinate with the White House, because Donald Trump was still the president at that time, and that he would not be able to serve as an impartial juror. And it's like, what other trial, a criminal, civil trial, whatever, can you declare before the trial even begins that you will not be impartial? I mean, any trial at all. It doesn't matter what it's for. It could be for a fucking car accident. It could be like somebody rear-ended somebody else, and the guy's like, suing for whiplash or something, right? Whatever. Even for something like that, if you have a conflict of interest, they'll kick you off. How come that's not happening here? How come the most important trial that could possibly happen for our country, the jurors don't need to be impartial? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't be allowed. And it just sort of shows the system is broken. The system is broken that Mitch McConnell can get up there and declare that, and because he knows that nothing's going to happen to him, and he knows that there's not going to be any consequences, and he knows that he's in a safe district and he's going to get reelected, and there's nothing that the Senate's going to do about it. And if you don't like it, you can kiss his wrinkly ass. That's what he knows, and that's why he can get up and say that shit. And it's a joke. It's a joke. It's kind of like, you guys ever watch Star Trek? I love Star Trek. All right. My favorite Star Trek show is Deep Space Nine. Right. I love Deep Space Nine. I think it's awesome. Of course, Next Generation, of course, is, the best show, but still. Deep Space Nine, I think, is my personal favorite. And there's a line in Season 7 of Deep Space Nine when Ezri Dax is talking to Worf, and they're talking about the Klingon Empire. And Ezri Dax says, I think the Klingon Empire deserves to die. Right? And then Worf says, why? Why is, whatever. And it's because, and she says back, because you allow corruption at every level of your government, of your society, and nobody does anything about it. You all know it's corrupt. You're a society based on a proud warrior tradition of, a proud moral tradition of warriors doing the right thing. But you allow corruption at all levels of your society and nobody does anything about it. And when that happens, your society has no more moral standing to exist. That's essentially it. I can't remember the exact lines there, but that's basically it. And it kind of applies. It kind of is a little that little scene there. Maybe I should dig that up and play it in my next stream. That little scene kind of is somewhat poignant of what's going on right now. Here's a guy, Mitch McConnell, extremely corrupt to the point where he doesn't give a fuck, and he'll just straight up admit his corruptness, right? And he knows that he will not be held accountable at all for anything that he does. No matter how much conflict of interest he has, no matter how corrupt and blatantly in your face, he is with the bias. You know, this is a guy that, you know, if you remember, held back Obama's Supreme Court pick for a year. And then when Trump had one 3 months before the election, you know, or not even 3 months, like, you know, basically pushed through Amy Coney Barrett within 8 days and shit in order to get it through before the election. It was 3 weeks before the election, right? That Ruth Gator Bingser died. So there you go, right there. I mean, that's corruption 101, you know, and he's not the only one. You know, we talked about Ted Cruz already and Josh Hawley. Another story came out that Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham and Senator Mike Lee of Utah all went and met with Trump's defense team. I think this was on Wednesday of this week. Right. Just had a private meeting with them. These are 3 guys who are supposed to be on the jury. They're going to be voting, right, as to whether or not Donald Trump should be convicted and never allowed to run for public office, never allowed to hold public office ever again, right? That's what these guys are going to be there for. They're just going and having a 70-minute meeting with Trump's defense. And it's like, well, what did you guys talk about? You know, and they just said, oh, we just talked about strategy. Well, what kind of shit is that? You know, strategy? Like, how is that allowed? You know, if you are in a trial and you're a juror, right, then you can go to jail for that. That's like, in some states, that shit is illegal. At the very least, you would be kicked off of the jury. You know, they would say this jury's unpopular, and they would get swapped out, and then a new juror would be brought in, right? But in some states, you can actually go to prison for colluding, you know, for impartial, like, you know, the lawyers that you do it with will lose their licenses, if not go to prison for that. Jury tampering. Right? Like, how has that shit evolved? But, you know, but they don't care, you know? These 3 guys, they did it, and when they're questioned by, you know, the news, it's sort of like they don't give a fuck. And this is kind of what we saw during the last, you know, during the trial this week. This is what we saw from the Republicans as they were putting in the prosecution, right? As they were giving their presentations, showing the videos of, you know, the rioters, things like that, right? And how that one cop saved you know, Romney's life, right? Mitt Romney's life, things like that. There's video and pictures of all the Republicans doing everything but paying attention, you know. There were like Josh Hawley, that guy that gave the fist bump that I showed the picture of earlier. That guy was sitting there in the upper level with his feet up, reading through briefs, not paying attention, right? Senator Mike Brown was falling asleep, right? Just dozing off, you know. Rick Scott from Florida was looking at maps of Southeast Asia while this was going on. It's like, the fuck are you doing? Like, what does that have to do with the trial? I mean, this dude's like planning a fucking vacation, you know, or looking for buried treasure or some shit. Who even knows what the fuck he's doing? Like, pay attention, asshole. Seriously. You know, they were sitting and they were just basically walking in late. You know, they're chatting with each other, right? Of course, there was another thing that I saw, that Rand Paul was not wearing a face mask during this whole thing. That's kind of amazing, too, that we still get Republicans in the House and the Senate who refuse to go along with the mask mandate. As a side note, Rand Paul actually already caught COVID and survived it. And that's one of the reasons why he isn't wearing a face mask, because now he says that he's immune and he doesn't need to wear it. And apparently Rand Paul does not understand that you can be reinfected with, you know, the Rona. So him walking around without a face mask is putting other people in danger. But, you know, why would you expect him to actually take precautions for other people? He's a conservative. Conservatives don't give a shit about other people. You know, he survived it, so fuck you. That's basically what he's saying right here to everybody else. I got mine. Kiss my ass. Fuck you. I got mine. That should be the Republican fucking motto right there. You know, the Republican Party motto. I got mine. Fuck you. Right. So anyway, it's like they're not even trying. And you know, and if you've seen, you know, I was gonna pull out the video. I'm pretty sure you've already seen it of Trump's defense. You know, when they did their opening statement. And what was this guy's name? The opening statement from Trump's defense. I had his name down here. I can't remember what it is, but basically, you know, I'm sure you've seen it. You know, the where the dude is just like rambling, right? You know, just has this sort of like long, you know, meandering kind of you know, he doesn't stick to the point. He's talking about like pretty much everything but the trial. And it's kind of like they're not even trying. It's like they don't even care about what they're actually doing. Like apparently so the reason why, right? God damn it, I wrote this down and then I lost it. But apparently the reason why Trump's lawyers are so bad is because his legal team quit a week before this started, and he had to get new lawyers, right? And the reason why his old legal team quit is because Donald Trump wanted to use what's called the affirmative defense. So what's the affirmative defense, right? That's when you claim that what you did was not illegal. So, you know, let's say that you get busted stealing some bread, you know, and you go before the judge, and the judge says, you know, did you steal this bread? And he said, yes, I did it, but I did it because my child was starving, you know, and or something like that. Or you say, okay, you broke into this guy's house and stole a bunch of stuff. And then you say to the judge, yeah, I did it because this guy stole those things from me, and the police weren't doing anything about it, right? That's the affirmative defense. What I did was justified, you know. So maybe not, it's not like necessarily what I did was legal, but what I did was justified, you know, because a jury can take those special circumstances into account. You know, it's not wrong to steal something if you're starving. It's not wrong to steal food if you're starving. It's not wrong to break into a place of business if that person is, say, for example, holding a hostage. Right? Or if there's proof of a crime in there. Stuff like that. You know what I mean? Those can be taken into account. It's like, yeah, okay, maybe the act you did was technically illegal, but there were special circumstances. And, you know, you may even get acquitted, or you may get a lower sentence, something like that. That is an actual valid defense. So this apparently was the defense that Donald Trump wanted to use, the affirmative defense. Yeah, I did incite these people to riot, but I did it because the election was stolen from me. That was his defense. And his first group of lawyers didn't want to go with it because that's bullshit, because the election wasn't stolen, and they would basically have to prove that the election was stolen, and they know that that's not possible because the election was not stolen. Right? So they all quit. And this second group, Trump's current lawyers now, I believe today they're actually like wrapping up the defense. There might even be a vote today in order to convict. But anyway, his second group of lawyers is focusing on the defense that it's not legal to, you know, it's unconstitutional to convict a president, to impeach a president who is no longer president. That's bullshit. You know, there is historical precedent for government officials who have left office being impeached, right? And I'm sure I'm not the person to come up with this, but I'm sure you've heard the response to that. You know, I saw on the Young Turks, for example, they mentioned that, well, that would mean that all a president would have to do is just resign, and then he'd be able to get away with anything. So let's say that, you know, or if you're a government official, for example, let's say you get impeached because you're embezzling money, right? All you would have to do is just resign, and then they couldn't impeach you, and you couldn't be held accountable for that anymore. And that's not how it works. It's like, no, This is a crime that you committed, right? And, the legal recourse for holding a president responsible for crimes they commit is impeachment. And there is precedent for, impeaching someone who's already left office. And his punishment would be, certain rights would be revoked, things like his travel money, shit like that, but also he wouldn't be able to rerun for office and hold office again. That's his punishment, at the very least, So that's bullshit, but, you got to remember this is a political trial. It's not a criminal or a civil one. So, there is a 100% chance that they vote to not convict, and that's probably what's going to happen today. It's really fucked up. I don't know. I mean, getting back to, it kind of makes you think like maybe we deserve this, right? Hear me out when I say that. If we can't, maybe our government actually is broken, and maybe it is broken beyond repair, right? I personally don't think so. I think that it can be repaired, but we don't have the political will to do it. For example, I think that if Donald Trump was a Democrat, he'd be convicted. Right. I really do. I really do think that. I think that if say Barack Obama did the exact same thing that Donald Trump did, he would have got convicted. Right. Because the Democrats don't have the same sort of control over their party that the Republicans do. Democrats don't vote in lockstep the same way that Republicans do, right? And they're much more susceptible to public opinion and shaming, things like that. Democrats always apologize for things. They resign for shit that Republicans don't resign for. Sex scandals, the like, stuff like that, corruption. They hold their people more accountable. The voters hold their people more accountable, right? For actual wrongdoing. Republican voters hold Republicans accountable for them breaking with the ideology, right? So if you have a Republican, for example, that votes against abortion, says, or votes for abortion, says, okay, I'm going to vote to allow abortion, that guy will get primaried, right? If that same Republican gets busted stealing campaign funds, no, there won't be any type of, retribution for that at all. The voters the voters probably wouldn't even believe that. They would probably think that was just fake news. It's kind of the opposite with Democrats. Okay? Democrats don't really care about, okay, we voted for this Democrat and he voted against this bill, or whatever, right? That guy most likely wouldn't get primaried. But if that same politician got busted doing something illegal, he'd be gone. Right? And that's just sort of how the other way, that's just sort of how it shook out. I'm not really sure why. I'm sure there's probably some kind of psychological reason behind that. I think it has a lot to do with authoritarian tendencies in religion. The more religious you are, the more likely you are to be conservative. And, if you're more conservative, the more likely you are to vote Republican. And you're more likely to forgive your father figure when they do something wrong. Whereas Democrats seem to be the exact opposite. They only seem to get, they get riled up over big issues. Right. And they really don't like it when their politicians do shit that's illegal. But anyway, just my own personal observations there. I would have to do some more research on that before I try to, come up with some examples and things before I try to say that's some kind of axiom of truth or whatever. Because I'm sure there's probably tons of examples that would show me wrong there, but that's just my own observations. Anyway, here's the thing about all this, right? Why am I bringing this up? Why am I calling this stream Republicans Were Always Violent? It's because the Capital City riot is not the only example. Wow, this is totally crooked. Hang on. There we go. Little less crooked. Okay. This is not the only example of violence from Republicans specifically, right? It's kind of just the accumulation of it. It's sort of like, this has sort of been something that's been kind of developing for years. Even before Donald Trump became president, you know, we had, but I think when Trump ran for president and actually won, it accelerated it a lot. You know, if you remember back in the day when Donald Trump was, you know, still running in 2015, right? In 2016. And he kind of, you know, there would be like at his rallies, you know, he'd say shit like, you know, a protester would show up, start protesting him, and then people would just like start beating him. You know, people, that was a big sort of rash of that was a big problem at Trump rallies, you know, counter protesters getting their asses kicked. And it was controversial because Donald Trump wouldn't like disavow that. You know, he would basically say, punch him in the face, get him out of here. And there's a very famous quote where he said, you know, if you see any of those people, punch them in the face, I'll pay your legal bills. Right? He essentially encouraged it, and that should have been a warning flag right there. You know, this guy's encouraging violence. And then people would try, like reporters and shit, would try to get Donald Trump to like disavow that, and he never fucking would. He would always skirt around the issue. You know, he would never like he never took that back, right? Of course, he never actually paid anybody's legal bills. That's another thing too, right? Because people would get arrested at his rallies for punching people and assaulting people, stuff like that. Donald Trump never bailed any of these people out. You know, the same way that all the QAnon guys thought that he was going to pardon all of them after the riot. He didn't do shit. He didn't, you know, he didn't give anybody any pardons or anything like that. Because in real life, you know, the truth is Trump doesn't give a fuck about these people. That's the thing you got to remember. He's a grifter. He's a fucking con man. You know, he's a guy that makes money ripping people off, you know, Trump universities, stuff like that, right? He never actually had any intention of paying anybody's legal bills. Okay, but that was a very, you know, and this kind of thing happened a lot, okay? Here's a list, right? And I will put this in the chat also, okay? There you go. Let me just turn off all of these ads in here. And let me turn on my monitor. This is from The Guardian. Violence in the name of Trump. Dozens of supporters of Donald Trump have carried out violence. Here's a list as of August of 2019. So this list is about 2 years old here. You know, it doesn't have things like the, you know, Capital City riot and all of that stuff. But I think what's interesting is let's go all the way back here. So you can see, you know, this is a pretty thorough list up until 2019, right? Let's go all the way back here to the beginning. The first one was in August of 2015, right? Scott and Stephen Leader, right there. The Leader brothers beat and urinated on a homeless Latino man in Boston, August 2015. Told police Donald Trump was right. All these illegals need to be deported. All right. This is like way back in 2015, you know, so it's not like all of a sudden Republicans start getting violent and they go and like cause a riot and break into the Capitol. This is shit that's been brewing for a long time, you know. There was another one that I wanted to show here. Let's see. This guy here in Richmond, California, allegedly threatened to kill all Muslims as he left a mosque. Constructed a makeshift pipe bomb. Posted a photo to Facebook. That's another thing. Another pattern you'll see by reading through these accounts. is that these idiots are always posting this shit to social media. It's like, I don't know, I don't understand why Trump supporters specifically like making their threats publicly like that in such a way that can get them arrested. It's like, you fucking idiot. Don't put a picture of yourself. I don't know. Or maybe I shouldn't be encouraging them not to do that. Maybe we should encourage them to do that. That way they'll get caught. I don't know. Maybe we should be saying, hey, yeah, if you're gonna kill somebody, make sure you put it on Facebook. You know, maybe that way the FBI will catch all you fucking idiots. Anyway, so there was one here that this guy here, John McGraw, sucker punched a black protester who was being. There's a video of that. I could post that there. Guy being escorted from a Trump rally. This dude just walks up, punches him in the face. You know, says next time we see him, we might have to kill him. Trump said he was considering paying McGraw's legal fees, but ultimately did not. That was one I wanted to point out there. There was another one. This guy, March 2016, Matthew Heimbach, a neo-Nazi, reportedly shoved a black protester at a March 2016 Trump campaign rally in Kentucky while wearing a red "Make America Great" hat again. Make America Great Again hat. So I thought I would put this up here so you guys can kind of see where I'm coming from. You know, another pattern you'll see here, a lot of these people, you know, a neo-Nazi here, another guy will be a white supremacist, you know, and it kind of paints this sort of profile of Trump supporters. Let me turn this off. You know, kind of paints this profile of Trump supporters there. That's a really good page to read through, and it's a good resource if you ever debate somebody, you know, if you ever get into, you know, fights online with people and you want to debate this shit. Just put, you know, good resource to show that it's kind of always been like this since Trump arrived on the scene. You know what I mean? And that page only goes up to, like, you know, 2019. Since then, there's been even more. You know, in December of 2020, there was a Trump protester who was arrested after firing into a crowd with a pistol at a Trump rally. There were some counter protesters, and this dude had a pistol, used it to pistol whip somebody, then shot it into a crowd of people. Thankfully, nobody died. Right? Another one, September 7th in 2020, there was a guy that ran over somebody at a BLM rally. As a matter of fact, we have video of this too. Rochester BLM protester hit by car as driver sprays crowd. So I don't think there's any sound on this, but is it going to play the video? Play the video, damn it. So you can kind of see here. In fact, you know what? Let's make this bigger, if I could make that big. Right. Here goes your car. There's the people there. Drives through, starts spraying people with fucking bear spray. Hits this dude right here. Speeds off. Right. You know, you can kind of see it. Straight up fucking, like, I mean, it looks like the guy's okay, but still, that's pretty fucked up. You know. And that's actually, let me block that, and how do I get out of this? That was an incredibly common thing, running over protesters at BLM rallies over the last 4 years. Here is a list here from USA Today. I'm not going to open this, but I will put this in the chat here so you guys can check it out, right? This is a list that I just posted of 104 instances where cars have hit demonstrators since the George Floyd protests began. 104 times people have run into protesters, you know. Which, okay, now if it happened once or twice, something like that, I mean, if you have people standing in the road, right, yeah, okay, it'll happen. 104 times? 104 times. There are 104 instances around the country of people at George Floyd protests getting run over. Right? Run over, hit by their cars. That happened so many times that there were several states that tried to pass laws in order to decriminalize running over people at protests. It's not a joke. Okay, in fact, I have a link for that too. I will put that in the chat there also, so you can read that too and see that these 6 states, Florida, North Carolina, North Dakota, Rhode Island, Tennessee, and Texas, tried to pass laws in order to make it okay to run people over at protests. Unbelievable. Now, here's my question, okay? If a BLM person were to run over somebody, a Trump supporter, at a Trump rally, do you think there would be 6 states trying to make that, trying to reduce the criminal penalties for that? Right? Seriously. Be honest. Do you really think that if this was a tactic that the left wing was using against the right wing, that there would be legislation out there to reduce the criminal penalties for running people over? Right? If you're saying yes to that, you're lying to yourself. Okay? No. In fact, what would happen is that laws would get passed to make it even worse. And laws would get passed to give you the fucking death penalty for running people over. That's what would fucking happen. All right? Don't give me this horse shit that's not true. That's exactly what would fucking happen. Okay? It's because, it's because the Republican politicians are, I don't know what, is it part of the culture to just, violence here? It's like, it's okay if you're doing it against the BLM people, if you're doing it against leftists, if you're doing it against communists, it's fine. That's absolutely fine. If you're trying to take over the fucking government for the guy who lost the election, as long as he's a Republican, everything's cool. But if it was the other way around, hell no. It seems like, I remember back at the turn of the century, right, back in when there were protests against the, World Trade Organization, stuff like that, right, and kind of when we started seeing, there would occasionally be riots there, that kind of thing, that there were states that were trying to pass legislation to ban mask wearing. I should have looked this up too, but this is true shit. You can look this up on your own. There were many states around the country who were trying to criminalize it if you wore a mask in public. Why? I mean, God, that one hasn't aged well, has it? That's definitely aged like milk. But why? Because, leftists and black bloc people, stuff like that, would hide their face at these protests. So there you go. There's a perfect fucking example. And that, wearing a mask doesn't even hurt anybody. It's not like you're running somebody over with your mask. So there you go, dude. Just a nice little example there of what actually happens and the disparity of punishments between the left wing and the right wing in this country. So there's more we could talk about, because getting back to the pattern of violence, and we could just even look at just what happened in 2019, 2020. We had, for example, Kyle Rittenhouse, right? You all know about that guy, goes across state lines with a gun that's not his, ends up shooting 2 people who were breaking into a store that he had nothing to do with, even if they were or not. Gets donations, right? What happens? This guy kills 2 people. How do they hold him accountable? They donate to his legal defense fund to the amount of $2 million. Still have not been able to find out exactly what's going on with him breaking his terms of his bail. Because he has, if you haven't heard about that, Kyle Rittenhouse has broken his terms of bail. Has he been rearrested? I don't know. There's nothing in the news. Supposedly the idea, the reason why he did it was because he was getting death threats, but I highly fucking doubt that. I don't think anybody has really threatened Kyle Rittenhouse's life, but, you know, I don't have any proof one way or the other, so I can't say that definitively. It just doesn't seem, you know, to make sense to me. You don't usually see death threats coming from the left wing in this country. That's usually something that you get from the alt-right. You know, I think more likely they just, you know, if anything, you would get people outside of his house protesting. Right. Protesting outside someone's house is not the same thing as invading their house or threatening to kill them. That's another thing you got to remember. This is something that Lindsey Graham said, by the way. You know, oh, they came to my house, they threatened my wife, blah, 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 blah. You know, left-wing protesters. In real life, they didn't. In real life, they went and held a vigil outside of his house and did not threaten him or his wife. Lindsey Graham is lying to you. Anyway. So, what else did we have this year? We had the plot in Michigan to kidnap and kill the governor, who was held by, you know, an anti-government militia of, you know, boogaloo assholes, right? One thing you'll hear from the right wing is they'll claim that these guys, the militia dudes who wanted to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, they'll claim that they were leftists. They were not leftists. The reason they'll claim that is because one of the guys has a video of himself with an anarchist sign in the background, right, of his room. That does not mean that, you know, if you just have that sign, or if you have a flag or a t-shirt with the anarchist symbol on it, that does not mean you are a left wing. That means that you are anti-government. And this is what these guys were. They were far right-wing anti-government people. They've, you know, the same guys who would claim that these people are left-wing are forgetting that one of the other dudes has pictures of himself with a MAGA hat on. Okay. So, yes, they were a right-wing militia. All right. The people that are telling you that they were a left-wing hate group or whatever are lying to you. Who else did we have? We had a week before the Capital City riot, there was a riot in Kalamazoo by the Proud Boys. This kind of got lost in the news because the Capital City riot completely overshadowed it, but we forget that a week before, there was lots of pictures and video of the Proud Boys actually fighting with police, rioting, burning shit down, doing all of the things that the right wing claims that Antifa and BLM has done this entire summer. You know, oh, they've burned down entire city blocks, blah, blah, blah. They've beaten and assaulted people. You know, 1 week before the Capital City riot, Proud Boys are doing that out in Washington. You know, in fact, there's plenty of video of them assaulting cops, yelling at the police, saying, like, we had your back, you betrayed us, blah, 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 blah. That's another thing you get from the right wing. They think they own the cops. The right wing thinks they own the police. They think they own the military. They think they have a monopoly on patriotism. And this shows very well that, you know, when the police or military don't bow down to them, how fast they'll switch, turn around, and start calling them all traitors, and will even beat one of them to death with a fire extinguisher on the, you know, let's not forget about that guy, right, during the Capital City riot, the police officer who was beaten to death on live TV. That was some scary shit. Speaking of the Proud Boys, we have multiple instances over the last 3 or 4 years of them assaulting people, beating people. Just go on YouTube, right? Do a search for Proud Boy beats, Proud Boy fights, Proud Boy assaults, things like that. You'll get plenty of examples of them beating up protesters usually at BLM protests, right? one came to mind. I should have saved it. There was a video I saw once of this woman running away through a crowd as various Proud Boys in the crowd kind of just punch and kick her as she's running away. And she's sort of running for her life, and these guys are trying to grab her. You know, one guy smacks her in the face, another guy kicks her, and she falls over. She gets up, she keeps running, you know. And it was just like, wow, really just, you know. The thing about that is, did these guys ever get held accountable for that? No. Did any of those guys ever go to jail for that? No. Right? You know, if you're at a protest and you beat the shit out of somebody, chances of you getting caught very, very, very low. You know what I mean? We also have Seattle's CHOP, if you remember the CHOP. The reason why CHOP ended is because security shot a couple of people. Right? What they're not mentioning is that those weren't the only people to actually be shot in Seattle's autonomous zone. Leading up to that, the reason why the two kids... So basically what happened is that there were these two teenagers who drove up to the checkpoint and didn't stop their car. And so the guys who were running security opened fire on it and killed one of them. Right? The reason why that happened is because the same up that to that week, there were multiple shootings during that week. Right? One of them happened the same night. Two shootings the same night. One guy died, another guy lived within 2 blocks of each other. The guy who survived claims that the person who shot him was from the Proud Boys. Right? I have not been able to find any further information on whatever police investigation, if there even was one after that is. But there you go. That's why those, you know, that's why that shooting happened at CHOP, because Proud Boys were going around assaulting people, beating people, and fucking a guy just got murdered. Right? And so yeah, there you go. You know, we're forgetting about that. You know, that the whole Chaz CHOP thing, you know, like there was a perimeter around that where it was basically just like, you know, if you got caught outside in that perimeter and they didn't like how you looked, fucking Proud Boys would just like beat the crap out of you, if not kill you. You know, did any of those guys ever get caught for that? Right? Were there even police investigations open for that? I couldn't find anything out about this. If I could, I would be posting it right now. I couldn't find anything out about it. And it's just like, okay, well, there you go. Right? Another thing, 3 weeks ago, right before the attack, right before the capital city attack, we had Proud Boys burning down a churches, burning down a church in Washington. There was also a black church, sorry. Was it in Washington? No, it was in, shit, I didn't write down where it happened. I think it was Massachusetts. Proud Boys burned down a historically black church in Massachusetts. And then, what else we got? Here's the thing that I found here. For those of you guys who are interested, I will not open this up, but you can read that later. This is titled "Conservatives Forget History and Discrediting Trump Protesters." This is from 2016. That's a pretty good article that I just posted. It basically, the gist of it is that after Trump won in 2016, there was a lot of protests against him. Whoa, what happened to my monitor? Okay, there it is. There was a lot of protests against Donald Trump. And it's kind of funny, if you read that article, what it basically says is that the conservative response to that is that we didn't protest when Obama won because we have jobs. That was the conservative response in 2016 to protesting against Donald Trump, which has kind of aged like really, really crusty-ass sour milk, seeing what happened when Donald Trump lost. Hasn't it? It's like if he could just go back in time and just show those people, it's like, yeah, anyway. Something to remember is that even before, way back in even in 2016, when the election was happening, right, and everybody thought Hillary Clinton was going to win, there was lots of threats coming from the right wing about violence, about what will happen if Donald Trump loses the election. And it's even before the election, even back when he was running for the Republican primary, there were threats about, like, basically threats of riots if Donald Trump didn't win the primary. In fact, Donald Trump actually said it himself. And here's an article for this, right, from NBC News. Donald Trump warns supporters could riot if he doesn't get the GOP nomination. Okay. I'll put this down in here for you, too, so you can read this. Now, keep in mind, this is Donald Trump saying this, right? There's that. He basically tweeted somewhere in here, here we go. I think bad things would happen. I really do, Trump said. I believe that. I wouldn't lead it, but I think bad things would happen. Right. So this is him basically predicting a riot, He says it up here. Here we go. Donald Trump warned Wednesday that his supporters will respond with riots if he fails to secure the nomination at July's convention in Cleveland. I think you'd have riots, he told CNN. I think you'd have riots. I'm representing a tremendous many, many millions of people. This is Donald Trump, even before getting the, nomination, right? Now, just look at what that says right there, right? Why would you say that on the news? Why would you go to the news and say, hey, if I don't get this, I think there will be riots if I don't get the nomination here? Why would you say that, right? Because the responsible thing to do, if you're a politician, right, is to get on TV, get on social media, and tell your supporters not to fucking riot. That's the responsible thing to do, right? That's what Mitt Romney would do. That's what Barack Obama would do. That's what, Joe Biden would do. That's what Ted Cruz would do. That's what any politician would do, would get up there and be like, hey, if I don't win this, you fuckers better not do anything, essentially, in a nice language. Donald Trump didn't do that. Donald Trump that was basically just a veiled threat. Hey, if I don't win this, these people are there's gonna be violence. Well, what if, even if you believe that to be absolutely true and you believe it to be out of your control, these are people who support you, it behooves you to try to lessen that violence. He didn't do shit there. It's like, and it all makes very much, perverse sense looking back over the last 4 years, and especially what happened on the 6th. It's like you can even see the pattern developing even way back then. Unfucking believable. Right? And then, so he, and then don't forget, in 2016, like I said earlier, there were people from, threatening violence. Trump supporters were threatening violence if Hillary Clinton won the election. Right? Go in there, do a search for Trump supporters threaten revolt. Hillary. Watch how many, results you get. Okay? So, yeah, it's not like we didn't, we knew that this was already a thing. We knew that, it's not like this is a new phenomenon, It was kind of like that since the beginning. One could argue the further back you go, there was also rumblings of this as well back during the Obama years. Tea Party people, right? Tea Party supporters and Trump supporters are essentially the same people. They're born out of the same movement, right? Unbelievable. So just keeping that all in mind, right? Now, there was one more thing I wanted to go with. It's like you kind of see, especially that one article I posted of all the different instances of violence at Trump rallies and Trump supporters engaging in violence that I posted there. Please read that if you're interested. I really think that it could give you some good insight, right, into the mentality of these people, right? And you'll start noticing a pattern. You'll start seeing, they're all essentially the same. They believe, They all believe essentially the same things. It's sort of like a you can sort of start to put together I guess, what do they call that? An outline. You know what I mean? You can start to put together a persona of who these people are, what they believe, right? And it's basically they are the most conservative of the conservative, right? They're the people that, you know, join the militias and join the and go out and you know end up are very susceptible to being recruited by hate groups, white supremacist groups, things like that. You know, because a lot of people will talk shit all the time. A lot of people will talk shit and say, hey, I don't like this or that. I don't like immigrants, for example. I don't like black people, whatever. Right? A lot of people will express racism or bigotry or sexism and never actually do anything about it. You know, they'll hold these views. Most people who hold views like that will just never, they'll never go and join the KKK, for example. They'll never go and join the Proud Boys to want to go beat people up. You know, they may vote according to these biases, according to these prejudices, but they'll never engage in any sort of violent action. That's the vast majority of people around the country, right? It's not all Trump supporters either. You know, you'll notice in what I'm about to list some stats here, right? A very small number of people who would be considered liberal and progressive also express these views as well, right? But you know, you start to notice a pattern though that it's like far more prevalent in the right wing, right? Views of bigotry, you know, intolerance, extremely more prevalent. They're far more prevalent in the right wing than it is in the left wing when it comes to liberals, conservatives. I mean, liberals and progressives, and people who vote Democrat, stuff like that. So I have, for example, there was a poll done on December 30th from ISPOS. I won't open this up, but I will put this in the chat also. Let me just copy that. Copy link address. Put this down in the chat. Oop, crap, what did I just click? I clicked something weird. No. Paste that. Okay. This poll here is unique because it talks, this is a recent poll. It's before the 6th though, but, you know, December 6th, I mean, December is not that far away, you know. If you look at this, according to this, 17% of Americans believe in QAnon, according to that poll, right? That may have gone down a little bit since QAnon has been, you know, astoundingly rebutted by the fact that, you know, its predictions regarding the election and swearing in of Trump did not come true. But 17% of people, that's 57 million people, roughly. You know, 17% of Americans comes out to around 60 million people. Sorry, not 57, 17%. I said 57, sorry. It's 17% of Americans comes to roughly around 60 million people. That's a shitload of people there, man. That's a lot. You know, I mean, when you say 17%, that doesn't sound like very many. That's huge. That's like the entire state of Texas. Right there. You know what I mean? That's like, damn. Another thing that you'll get from that poll that I just posted there is that 40% of Americans believe the COVID-19 virus was created in a Chinese lab. You know, something that we have no evidence for whatsoever and is purely made up conspiracy theory bullshit. You know, they've tracked the virus all the way to the, you know, to the marketplace where it emerged. Okay, they know where it came from, right? And there's no evidence at all that this is escaped from a laboratory in some kind of monkey from outbreak scenario. Yet 40% of Americans believe that shit. You know, what is that? 150 million people? Somewhere around there. That's astoundingly ridiculous and insane, you know. Uh, Another one there from that same poll, a third of Americans. Now, this is not just a third of Republicans, a third of Americans, right? As of December of last year, believed that Joe Biden won the election through fraud. There you go. One third. 100 million people. I mean, is it any wonder that something like January 6th riot that actually happened? You know, when you have, is it any wonder, first off, that, right now there's roughly 3,000 to 4,000 people a day dying of the pandemic, when 40% of the country thinks it was a bioweapon created by the Chinese, right? Specifically, there to destroy America, right? Because that, I mean, it only makes sense that that's how people would react if they believe in these fantasies, these conspiracy theory fantasies right there. It only makes sense that if you thought that it was a weapon, if it was a ploy by the Chinese to destroy America, it only makes sense that you would be less likely to put on a mask, that you'd be less likely to take, basic measures, wash your hands, stay 6 feet away from people, don't go out to eat. It only makes sense, right? Because you have the incorrect information, if you really thought that the sitting president of the United States won through fraud and trickery, it only makes sense that you would, go to the Capitol and try to take the country back by force, right? Of course, there weren't 100 million people there at the Capitol that day, but, pretty sure that you could guess that many of those people that were there were not part of a militia. They were not part of any hate groups. Yes, we did see people like the Proud Boys there. We did see the 3%ers there. We did see, lots of hate groups there, right? Lots of, racist hate groups, things like that. Lots of white supremacists were there that day, that kind of thing. But a hell of a lot of the people that were there seem to be older, sort of just normal Republicans that you would have saw during the Tea Party movement, for example, right? A lot of these people are older business owners, right? A lot of these people flew in, I mean, you'll get a story here and there about a guy who was homeless or something who was involved in this riot. A lot of these people weren't. A lot of these people flew in. There's that one lady that wants to go to fucking Mexico. In fact, I think in the last stream, if I remember right, she actually got her vacation was granted. Business owner who was in the capital city riot, who is now gonna get to go on vacation to Mexico while she's waiting for her trial and shit, stuff like that, right? A lot of those people, they're not insane right-wing revolutionaries. This is the Republican base who has been fed so many lies that they can't tell reality from fantasy anymore, and they'll support the most ridiculous shit ever, because they've, through 30 years of really far-right reactionary right-wing media feeding them fucking horseshit, so they'll believe it when Donald Trump tells them that the election was stolen, and they won't give a shit when their senators blatantly lie to their face and meet with Trump's defense lawyers and shit like that. It's kind of ridiculous. Got another poll here for you, just as we are determining a, I guess we're kind of making a profile of right-wing insane people, right? Here's another poll for you. This one is from March of 2018. It's a little bit older. This is an Economist YouGov poll, right? And the reason I bring this poll up is because it actually has some things talking about social issues here. So according to this poll that I just put up, the moral, is it moral to smoke marijuana, right? 20% of liberals think that it's immoral. 58% of conservatives think smoking marijuana is immoral, right? Sounds about right, wouldn't you say? It's usually a lot more open on the liberal side, Here's another one. Is being gay morally acceptable, right? 15% of liberals, right, think being gay is morally unacceptable. 75% of conservatives think being gay is morally unacceptable. Okay, just to kind of hammer this home as to who these people are, what they believe, right? That's why I'm mentioning this stuff. Is premarital sex morally acceptable? Okay, 15% of liberals say it is not morally acceptable. 61% of conservatives. There you go, right there, right? You noticing a pattern here? You noticing, are we starting to get the profile of who these people are? Okay. Interracial marriage. Okay. How many people? Now this is going to be kind of like, wow. Okay. 6% of liberals think interracial marriage is wrong. That kind of blew me away. All right. 25% of conservatives think interracial marriage is wrong. Morally wrong. I'm sure there's a lot more, in that poll that we could dig up. But there you go, right there. So if you thought race didn't have anything to do with this, if you thought, gender didn't have anything to do with this, right? Kind of shows you right here. Who do you think that 25% of conservatives voted for? That think that, interracial marriage is wrong. Or that it's, the 61% of those conservatives who think premarital sex is morally wrong. Or the 71% of conservatives that thought being gay is morally wrong. Who do you think they voted for? Who do you think the 6% of liberals who thought interracial marriage is wrong, who do you think they voted for? Did they vote for Hillary Clinton? Did they vote for Joe Biden? Did they vote for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders? Probably not. Got to remember, it's not all about your political party. It's not all about your race, right? But it sure does seem to align a certain way, doesn't it? I don't understand how somebody could consider themselves a liberal and think that interracial marriage is wrong. But, kind of shows you, that they call themselves liberal. Who am I to deny that, right? Kind of goes to show you, it's all about culture. The culture in the North versus the South, conservative culture versus liberal culture, the city versus the country. That's the dynamic that we have now in this country, and it has to do with the culture, the regional cultures in the country, which is sort of expanded online, and but the sides are not always as I guess clean. They're not always as defined as people would like it to be. You know what I mean? But it certainly seems to follow a pattern here, doesn't it? So I don't know. Draw whatever conclusions you want from that. And I just noticed that right now, we've essentially finished the drawing. Here we got it. What do you guys think? Can't really get the entire thing. I mean, there's still a little bit down here and a little bit up there. But that's pretty much it. Wow. For like the last 6 streams. And I think I'll, yeah, I think I'll make prints out of this. That's what I'll do. I'll make prints of it. I'll put it on my Etsy shop, and then I will give you guys a coupon code so that you can get it for free. And, you know, and I won't ask you for shipping unless you, like, live in, like, you know, fucking Afghanistan or something, and it costs me $25 to ship it to you, then I'll ask you for shipping. But, you know, if you live in the continental U.S. or even Europe, I can ship it to you. It's not a problem. And this will be a nice little reward for people who watch my streams, because I won't advertise this coupon code anywhere else. So I'll probably have that up and ready by the next stream, you know? So if you want a copy of this, I can make you a copy. Anyway, let's read through some of the comments here. Who do we got here? Let's go up to the top. Where are we at? We're at a minute, an hour 40. Let's see. Dynacat. Senate voted for witnesses, but then Trump's defense made it clear. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, I think they're shooting themselves in the foot there by not allowing witnesses. You know, I think they should have done it. I think they should have just let the Trump people call 50 shitty, ridiculous witnesses, because that would turn people against them in the public. You know, that would turn, you know, public opinion against them. And the fact that they are not willing to do that kind of tells me that they're not really serious about convicting Trump anyway, which is really kind of fucked up. So, shit, I might have made a mistake there, but I can cover it. You know what? I need to just not mess with this. That's the problem. You know, there is such a thing as overworking a drawing to the point where it's like you end up messing it up, and you just have to know when to quit, when to just stop. You know what I mean? And I think now, okay. Oh, wait, I forgot to sign it. Crap. I can sign it over here. Okay, there's a little bit of space on this side. I'll just put a little sort of 21. There we go. Okay. There we go. Signed it up at the very top there. So, little tiny signature at the top. You can barely see it. Anyway, let's see what else we got here. Dynacat. Trump wanted it to get so bad enough for him to declare martial law. Oh, you mean like on the 6th? Like, you think that was part of the plan too? Like, he didn't want to call the National Guard and stop it because he wanted it to spread, and then that way he could declare martial law? That actually makes sense, because a lot of you know, it wasn't just the capital of you know, in Washington, D.C. It was also, like, there were threats for, like, state capitals around the country. That makes a lot of sense. Well, I mean, of course, we can't say this definitively or not without any actual proof, you know. I mean, this is just sort of speculation, you know. But, I mean, if there was, like, say, for example, any kind of proof, like an email or a phone call or something where they were outlining this, I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt that shit at all. That's a really good, you know, real good insight there, actually, man. Lewis the Hedgehog. Anyone played Fallout? Yes. Yes, I have. As a matter of fact, I have the Fallout Collector's Edition. It's like a bomb with a, like, it came with Fallout 1, 2, and 3. And then there was a space. It was right around when Fallout 4, you know, and then there was a space where you could put in Fallout 4. And it's like this bomb thing. And I got that for Christmas, and I look online, and now it's worth like $300. That's awesome. So yeah, I'm definitely totally into Fallout. I went and bought Fallout 4 so that I could complete the set, you know. But I've recently, although I really haven't had a lot of time for video games recently. But you know what I have been playing? I got the Super Mario 3D, you know, collectors, like on the Switch. There's a, what is it? The Super Mario 3D All Stars. I bought that, so it has like Mario 64 and Sunshine and Galaxy on the Switch, and I've been playing through those. So the problem with Mario games like that is that they're super huge and they take a lot of time. So I've been playing that recently. That's my thing. I also got a game called River City Girls. I've been playing that. I don't know if you're into fighting, like sort of beat 'em up kind of games. I've been playing that. It's actually really fun. What else we got here? One more had nothing to do with that. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Lewis. I have to go back and read that. Okay, the adversary Fandin. How you doing, man? Lich McConnell. Yeah, totally. Sean Nillabud. If a grifter turd like Trump can float to the top to the system is fucked. Yes, well, that's kind of the problem with American politics, and especially the way that the laws are set up in the United States, is that it really does depend a lot on the good faith of the officials, the elected officials, to do the right thing. I think that's one problem that we've kind of uncovered during the Trump years. For example, just the impeachment process. It really relies on the idea that those in the Senate and the House would have the integrity in order to recognize when a president needs to be impeached. And a major weakness here that we've uncovered is that, politicians who put party above country. And I really think that our founding fathers didn't anticipate that. They thought that the people would elect representatives with integrity, and they weren't able to foresee a part in the future where, a time in the future when political parties would manipulate the masses and the electoral process in such a way to where they could run somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene and win unopposed, or where somebody like a slimy piece of shit like Ted Cruz can get elected multiple times, or when somebody like Donald Trump can just blatantly flaunt the system and just break all the rules and multiple laws and nobody holds them accountable because, it's not politically expedient for them to do so. I really think they didn't foresee that. If you think back 200 years ago, or 240 years ago now, I guess, right? There wasn't mass media back then. You know what I mean? Not really. There were newspapers, shit like that. There were no televisions. Most of the people in the country never even saw the person they were voting for face to face. Had no idea who they even were, never heard them talk. All they got was like speeches of, maybe speeches in a newspaper, something like that, and then they would vote according to what the guy stood for, and that was it. They didn't really have this sort of there was no capability of mass media to the extent that we have now, where one can go on and stay within a certain media bubble and have incorrect ideas reinforced over and over and over. That's not something that happened back then. There was much more diversity of thought back then, and also people relied more on their own moral judgments when it came to politicians, right? They were much more likely, for example, if a politician was caught doing something dirty, they were much more likely to vote to get that guy kicked out or prosecuted, something like that. You didn't have this sort of brand loyalty, 200 years ago, especially all the way up, I would say all the way up until maybe the 1970s. There wasn't that kind of brand loyalty. You think, people didn't vote for a Republican just because they're a Republican, or rather they wouldn't forgive a Republican for committing crimes just because the liberals were worse. You didn't see that. Even in the 70s, you didn't see that. That didn't really start happening until the 1980s. Once people like Rush Limbaugh showed up, they revoked the fairness doctrine. People like Rush Limbaugh show up, AM hate radio, things like Fox show up, dedicated 24/7 brainwashing where you can just go and get, and then you start, right when that happens, right into the 80s and then early 90s, that's when you start getting things like, you start getting really, reinforcement of demonstrably untrue ideas. You know what I mean? And everything starts getting really politicized. And shit that, like, things like environmentalism, which was never politicized before, becomes politicized. You know, Richard Nixon started the EPA, for crying out loud. Okay, environmentalism was not a political, you know, not a political, issue before Rush Limbaugh made it a political issue. You know, feminism was not a political issue until Rush Limbaugh came around, coined, started calling people feminazis and shit. That guy, Rush Limbaugh, actually coined that, feminazi. And a lot of the problems that we have today stemmed from the fact that they got rid of the fairness doctrine. And, because before then, people would get both sides of an issue. People don't get both sides of an issue now. And it's, human nature to only seek out the things that reinforce your preconceived ideas. Right. And that's why, that's why right now, 71% of conservatives think being gay is morally unacceptable. Right. 25% of conservatives think interracial marriage is morally wrong. Right. 40% of Americans think, Joe Biden stole the election. Right. That's why that's like that now. So anyway, moving on. Let's see what else we got here. They want Dinah Cat Loves Me. They want the affirmative more than they even want to do the act. That's why they post it all. They want the affirmation more than they even want to do the act. Yeah, huh? Exactly. Yeah, like we were talking about their people posting proof of their crimes on Facebook and stuff like that. You're exactly right. It's so that their friends will upvote it and shit like that, and it'll get to the, it'll get to the front page of Vote or whatever, rip-off Reddit app they use. You're exactly right. Denicat, what I can't figure out is why the rank-and-file fascists believe is in it for them. They will still be nobodies in a fascist state. Well, it kind of comes down, I think, to, the idea that they'll be in charge. Like, that they can identify with the ruling class even when they're not part of that. You know what I mean? It gives them the ability to look down on someone else. There was a famous quote. I can't remember who said it, but it was in reference to the Southern strategy, and it was like, tell a white man a black man is better than him, and I can't remember. What was it? What was this quote? I don't know. There was some really famous quote about using race to manipulate people in the South. I have to look it up. I don't want to say it here and butcher it and sound like an idiot, but it essentially comes down to, identifying with who you perceive as the winning side. You know what I mean? That's pretty much it. So, what do we got here? 1911, greater than all. How you doing, man? Haven't seen you around in a while. Do you have any right to protest in a roadway? No, you don't. Yeah, you don't. You don't have a right to protest in a roadway. But does that mean that someone's allowed to run you over? Okay. BLM and Antifa have a history of stopping cars and pulling people out and beating them. If you're stupid enough to play in traffic, then you deserve everything you get. So that happened I think there was one big news story where a car stopped and people started hitting the car and that kind of thing. Did they pull a guy out of his car and beat the crap out of him? No, they didn't do that. There were a couple of other news stories of people pulling up and shooting out of the windows of their cars at BLM people. That was definitely a thing that happened. But here's the point about that, okay? You don't have a right to protest and break traffic. You don't have a right to break laws, okay? But the point of protesting is to disrupt, right? It's to disrupt in order to bring your issue to the forefront. That's the goal of protesting is to get people talking about your issue. And it doesn't matter what the issue is. It could be protesting the World Trade Organization. It could be Black Lives Matter. It could be protesting animal cruelty. It could be whatever, the fucking pipeline, Canadian tar sands pipeline, whatever that was. It doesn't matter what your subject is, right? Your entire point is to get people talking about it, to get it in the news, to get the debate going, and hopefully get your side of the debate out there in the news so that people think about it and hopefully take your side. That's the entire point of protesting, right? And although, it may be illegal to do disruptive actions during a protest, right? It's not morally wrong to do illegal actions during a protest as long as that protest is peaceful. Okay? So, for example, doing a sit-in in a government building is illegal. That's a protest tactic where you go into, say, a federal building or a police station or a, courthouse, something like that, and you all just sit on the ground and you refuse to leave. And it prevents people from walking. They have to walk around you. They have to step on top of you, shit like that. That's against the law. Is that morally wrong? Another tactic is chaining yourself to a tree so that, loggers are going to come, they're going to cut down redwoods or something in California. These giant 200-foot tall trees that have been there for 1,000 years. They're going to go log all that shit, strip mine it or whatever, right? You chain yourself to this tree. Well, you're technically trespassing, right? You're on their land. They probably own the land, all that shit. It's technically illegal, and you can get ticketed and go to jail for that. Is that morally wrong to do that? You're disrupting things, right? What you're doing is technically illegal, but you're not hurting anybody. If it's peaceful, is it wrong? Okay? Blocking traffic is peaceful protest. It is. It's not aggressive. You're not, if you're just standing there in front of traffic, not allowing people to pass through, as long as when an ambulance shows up, you get out of the way, what's wrong? You're inconveniencing a couple of people. They got to drive a couple of blocks to go wherever the fuck they're going. They're going to 7-Eleven or some shit. They have to go to work, whatever. They have to go and get on the freeway at the next exit. Is it really that wrong? Are you... Yeah, it's illegal. It's illegal. You will get a ticket for that. Right? You could probably go to jail for it, although I doubt it. The proper punishment for blocking traffic is a ticket. Okay? Not a death sentence. So does that justify somebody just running someone over because they want to go that way? Because this is what's happening. That video that I showed, car drove through, hit a guy, sprayed a bunch of people with fucking bear spray or whatever the fuck that was. Is that a proper response for people who are just blocking the street? No. Do you have, is there video, in that video, were they attacking that car? No, they weren't. Okay. So it's like, no, it's not, that's not, it's not just a black and white issue. Oh, you're blocking traffic, I can run you over and get away with it because the state of Texas just passed a law saying that I don't go to jail anymore. That's bullshit. Right? So no, man, it's not exactly, it's not illegal and it's not wrong if it's peaceful, right? Anyway. Let's see. Let's move on here. There's some stuff about Kyle Rittenhouse here. I did a video about that. Maybe we'll do another one. Yeah, there is video saying that he's been threatened, blah, 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 but to me, it's sort of like going into a biker bar and, threatening to beat the crap out of anybody in there, and then when people actually do, you end up having to, kill 2 or 3 of them. It's like, who instigated that violence? Right? Who instigated that violence? He should, and plus he shouldn't have been there in the fucking first place. He was a minor. He was 17. He wasn't allowed to own a fucking gun. So we can talk about that later if you want, but I actually already did a few streams on that. We'll probably end up doing another stream on Kyle Rittenhouse after, he probably doesn't get convicted. He's most likely going to get off. So we'll come back to that. Let's see. Let's see what else we got here. Lewis the Hedgehog. But, Your Honor, I had to run them over. They were in my way. Yeah, they'll understand. Exactly, that's what we're talking about. Dinah Cat. They, the far right, are saying Sick Nick was not killed by the Capitol rioters now. They're demanding a release an autopsy. Oh, you mean the cop who was beaten to death by a dude with a fire extinguisher? They're saying he wasn't killed? So what? They want an autopsy? But let me guess. Are they going to see if he has fentanyl in his system or something? Seriously. That's a fucked up joke. I shouldn't have laughed at that, but it wouldn't surprise me if an autopsy, did say that he had some kind of drug. They'll try to claim that he died of a heart attack and not because some asshole bludgeoned him to death with a fucking fire extinguisher. What else we got here? Sean Illenbud, no dipshit. You can't pretend you have a right to fucking drive over people just because you're a weekend. Okay, well, you guys are. Yeah, I'll leave that to you. I don't want to get in the middle of any kind of comment fights here. Booyah Amadan, nice illustration. Thank you so much. Adversary Fandon, looks like you've drawn several of my sleep paralysis. God damn it! I can read words. Sleep paralysis. Fuck it, I'm not gonna be able to do it. Sleep whatever demons. Okay. Paralysis. Paralysis. I can't read. Sorry, dude. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. Okay. I think we should probably end this now. I'm starting to go off the rails and not being able to read basic English words. So I really appreciate you guys joining. Everybody, even you, 1911, I appreciate you joining as well. So like I said here, I will make a print of this, and I'll put a coupon code up. And if you want it, all you got to do is enter that coupon code, and you'll get it for free. So, paralysis. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you, Lewis. I really appreciate that. Paralysis. Okay. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and end this. I think we're in a good spot here. Just closing. I guess my closing comments here, is we're gonna see a lot, especially since there's going to be the vote today to most likely, acquit Trump, and he most likely will run for office again, and. So we might have to go through all of this, the last 4 years, all over again. If he runs for office, he might win, And I guess my closing comments is just don't let him gaslight you, Don't forget what happened over the last 5 years and what happened on January 6th, right? These people have always been violent, right? The politicians that they vote in have always refused to acknowledge or do anything about this violence, right? And they tried to steal the election, right? And don't let them, they tried to steal the election by force, okay? That by itself is the very definition of, an authoritarian state, right there. When you're circumventing a democratically held election by force, that's a coup, right there, okay? And you don't have a democracy after a coup. You know what I mean? That's the end of our democracy if that shit happens. And it could happen again. The next person, if it's not Donald Trump who's going to run, which I give it an 80% chance that he runs. Again, I mean, hopefully he'll be in prison and he won't be able to run. But, if it's not him, it's going to be somebody like Josh Hawley, or Ted Cruz, or some other slimy piece of shit who's just been taking advantage of all this stuff. And it's just don't forget what happened. Don't let them gaslight you. Don't let them lie to you. And push back on, in any way that you can, whether that's debating people on social media, whether it's making YouTube videos, whether it's just talking to your family and friends and make sure that you always remember what actually fucking happened. So anyway, let's go ahead and end this, folks. I'm going to go ahead and thank you all for staying. Let me just show you my social media stuff so that you will follow me and, you know, that kind of thing, right? I got to do this every time, you know, because it works. I notice that after I do a video, my sales go up. And it's like, well, shit. You know, it's kind of like when you say, please like and subscribe in a YouTube video, and everybody hates hearing it. But it works. When you say, please like and subscribe, people like and they subscribe. So please like and subscribe me. And if you like what I do and you want to support me, you can support me through financially if you want to, through my Etsy shop. This is my Etsy shop here. I sell prints. I sell little sculptures like this. I sell comic books, you know, of my own creation. Here's a real popular one. This is a Kraken, you know, kind of a big, crazy, tentacled sea monster kind of thing. I get a lot of sales on that guy. You know, this one right here is probably the one that people buy the most. This is Azathoth, the blind idiot god from H.P. Lovecraft. You know, so big, disgusting cosmic horror thing with tentacles encircling the earth and shit like that. So if you like what I do, you know, these are 11 by 17 prints, copy stain prints, and each one comes out a little unique. And I have some other characters in here, you know, these are like Godzilla characters. It's fan art. They let you get away with it. That's nice. You know, this one is from, if you've ever seen Dogma from Kevin Smith movie, you have the Golgothan poop demon. I made a print of that. So anyhow, if you like what I do and you want to support me, please check me out on my Etsy shop. In fact, you know what? I'll put that down in the chat if anybody wants to visit that. If you like my artwork, I have a DeviantArt website here. You can check me out here and follow me. I do occasionally post it here. It's mainly comics now, but I do have other stuff besides comics. If you like for example, the work that I do here, I have an entire folder of different weird demon monster things. So you can, you know, check these guys out. And if you like my artwork, you can get more of it here. And you can download all of these for free, too. That's another thing. I have a webcomic. This is hawanja.com. It is... Oh, wait, you can't see the top there. Let me just sort of scroll down. There we go. Hawanja.com, fun for the whole stupid family, and it's about ninjas and kung fu and that kind of thing. And this is a comic that I've been working on for a very long time, and I'm actually redrawing it. So there's going to be like, you know, this is going to be updated usually about once every week and a half, 2 weeks or so. I'm trying to get it down to a week, you know. But anyway, please check me out there. And this is my last thing here. This is my other YouTube channel. It's called UCD Videos. I talk about video games and I do toy reviews, and I review weird, you know, handhelds, and I do gaming streams, that kind of thing, and you know, lots of videos where I open toys and stuff because I collect toys. So if you want to see me talk about you know, movie reviews, that kind of thing, stuff that is not political in nature, check me out on UCD Videos. In fact, I will put a link to that down in the thing as well. So thank you guys so much. You know, thank you, Lewis the Hedgehog. Dynacat loves me. Thank you. Adversary Fandon 2, you're great. Sean Nillabud, 1911, greater than all. And everybody else who joined that I didn't mention or didn't comment. Thank you all so much. You guys are great. And I will be back next Saturday at 11 o'clock. And we'll see you then. Same bat time, same bat channel, all that stuff. So adios, folks. Thank you.